What if the world around you only exists because you're looking at it? What if reality itself changes the moment you turn your back? Sounds crazy, right? But science might have the answer. The double-slit experiment, the science behind the mystery. Imagine you're watching a wave, a single ripple spreading across the surface of water. Now, imagine that this wave is a particle. Wait, what? This is exactly what happens in the famous double-slit experiment, one of the most mind-bending phenomena in science. And the strangest part, it doesn't behave like you'd expect. Let's take a moment and step into a science laboratory, a place where the boundaries of our understanding of reality are constantly tested. You're a scientist, with a sense of wonder and excitement about what you're about to observe. In front of you stands an experimental setup that has baffled some of the greatest minds in history. It's a simple experiment, really. You have a screen, and in front of it, you've set up two tiny slits through which you're about to send particles. Electrons, in this case. The goal is simple. Observe how these particles behave when they pass through the slits. Surely it's nothing extraordinary, right? But then something incredible happens. You begin to watch the screen, waiting to see where these particles will land. The result is both surprising and perplexing. The particles don't just hit the screen in neat, predictable paths as you'd expect them to. Instead, they create an interference pattern, like waves in water spreading out and crashing against each other. A complex series of light and dark bands appear, revealing a pattern that suggests that these particles are behaving as though they are waves, not solid objects. Now, if you're still following, here's where things get truly mind-boggling. The moment you stop observing the particles, when you're not looking at them directly, they behave completely differently. The particles stop acting like waves and start acting like solid, discrete particles again. Instead of creating an interference pattern, they simply pass through one slit or the other, as you'd expect from regular particles. It's as though the act of observation itself changes their behavior. This is the essence of the double-slit experiment, one of the most famous and controversial experiments in the history of physics. It demonstrates something truly bizarre about the nature of reality. The mere presence of an observer seems to influence the outcome of the experiment. The particles behave in one way when being watched, but in a completely different way when left alone. This strange phenomenon is known as the observer effect, and it challenges everything we thought we knew about the relationship between the observer and the observed. Now, let's dive a bit deeper into the implications of this. The observer effect doesn't just apply to particles. It extends to the very fabric of reality itself. According to some interpretations of quantum mechanics, the act of observation doesn't just measure the state of the particles, but it creates that state. In other words, the universe doesn't decide what it is until we look at it. It's as though the act of observing collapses all possible outcomes into one reality. This brings us to a powerful, yet deeply unsettling question. If reality exists only when we observe it, does that mean reality is actually created by our perception of it? But here's the real kicker. What happens when no one is looking? What if, when we turn our gaze away, the particles and the universe itself simply vanish into a state of potential, waiting for someone else to come and bring them back into existence with their attention? Does the world exist in some abstract state when we aren't watching? Or does it only exist in a concrete form when we actively engage with it? What do you think? Do you believe that reality continues to exist even when you're not watching it? Or do you think that the universe simply disappears into infinite possibilities, only coming into focus when your mind decides to pay attention? What does this mean for our understanding of the universe and ourselves? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Does reality exist when you're not looking? Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the world around you fading away. The colors, the sounds, the objects, everything. Now ask yourself, does it still exist if you're not aware of it? Is the universe just a quiet witness, waiting for your attention to bring it back to life? This question, as simple as it may seem, has haunted philosophers and scientists alike for centuries. It challenges our very perception of reality. We tend to think of the world as something constant, something that exists independently of our minds. But what if it's not as fixed as we assume? What if reality only exists because we're looking at it, and without our attention, it vanishes, fading into a blurry, undefined space? One of the most fascinating aspects of quantum mechanics is how it makes us reconsider the very nature of existence. Consider the famous observer effect again. When we look at the world, we shape it, as if our consciousness actively creates the world we see. But what happens when we turn our gaze away? Does the world stop existing? Or does it continue on, like a silent movie playing out without an audience? This idea forces us to ask, is the universe a static thing that we simply perceive? Or is it a dynamic entity that shifts and changes based on our awareness? There's an idea rooted in quantum theory that suggests the act of observation does more than just reveal the world around us. It creates it. This is the essence of the Copenhagen interpretation, one of the leading explanations in quantum mechanics. It suggests that particles only take on a definite position, speed, or state when they are observed. Until then, they exist in a cloud of probabilities, ready to collapse into a particular state based on our attention. It's as though reality itself is a potential that only solidifies when we choose to engage with it. But if this is true, can the world really exist in the same way when we're not observing it? Let's take this deeper. If you were to leave a room, does it still exist? We know that objects are still present even when we're not looking at them. But is it possible that the world around us is not real in the same way we perceive it when we're present? Is there an aspect of reality that remains hidden, a kind of behind-the-scenes existence that only reveals itself when we consciously interact with it? What if the universe itself is constantly shifting and adapting, filling in the gaps with infinite possibilities, only materializing when we focus our attention on it? Imagine you're walking through a forest at night. The trees are there. The air is thick with the scent of leaves, but your mind is elsewhere. You're distracted, thinking about something that happened earlier in the day. In that moment, it's as though the forest becomes something distant, fading into the background. But is it truly fading, or does it just seem that way because you've stopped paying attention? This concept suggests that the very act of looking, of engaging with reality, is what makes it real to us. Without our awareness, the world might simply be a swirling mix of potential, waiting for us to focus and bring it into existence. This idea challenges not only our understanding of physics, but also our very sense of self. If reality depends on our observation, then what happens to our identity when we're not aware of ourselves? Are we simply projections of our consciousness, or do we exist independently of it? The more we explore these questions, the more we realize that reality might not be as objective as we once thought. It's an interconnected web of possibilities, waiting to unfold based on our choices, actions, and perceptions. So here's a thought-provoking question for you to ponder. What if reality is nothing more than a reflection of your consciousness, constantly shifting to align with your thoughts and perceptions? Could it be that we are co-creators of the world around us, bringing it into being with every thought, every glance, every decision? Or does the universe exist independently, regardless of our awareness, and only reveals itself when we pay attention to it? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think the world around you continues to exist when you're not looking at it? Or do you think reality is something that only becomes real when you're observing it? Consciousness and reality. Who is the true observer? You wake up in the morning, open your eyes, and see the world around you. But who is actually seeing? Who is the one experiencing reality? Is it your brain, your mind, or something deeper, something beyond physical existence? Could it be that consciousness is not just a byproduct of the brain, but something much more fundamental to reality itself? For centuries, scientists and philosophers have struggled to answer one of the biggest questions of existence. What is consciousness? We experience thoughts, emotions, and sensations, yet we cannot physically touch or locate consciousness itself. It is the lens through which we perceive the world, but where does it originate? Some argue that consciousness is merely an emergent property of the brain, a collection of neurons firing electrical signals, giving rise to subjective experience. But others propose something far more intriguing, that consciousness is not produced by the brain at all, but rather it exists independently and is the foundation of reality itself. This idea is echoed in quantum mechanics, where the role of the observer is central to how reality unfolds. The Double-Slit Experiment showed that particles behave differently, depending on whether they are being observed. But if observation is what collapses the wave of possibilities into a definite reality, then who or what is doing the observing? Is it just human consciousness, or is there something more fundamental that perceives reality into existence? Could the universe itself be conscious in some way? The concept of panpsychism suggests that consciousness is not something exclusive to humans, but is a fundamental property of the universe, present in all things at different levels. If this is true, then everything, from a rock to a star, has some form of awareness, no matter how small. But if all matter contains consciousness, does that mean the universe itself is a vast interconnected mind? And if so, what does that make you? Are you just a tiny fragment of a larger consciousness, or could you be the observer, creating your own reality? This question has deep philosophical implications. If reality is shaped by observation, then who or what was the first observer? Did the universe come into existence only when there was something conscious to witness it? Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest that reality requires an observer to exist at all. But if that's the case, does that mean reality existed before life evolved? Or did it somehow wait for a conscious being to observe it? Could the observer be something beyond human perception, something we don't yet understand? Another theory suggests that the mind and reality are entangled, constantly influencing each other in ways science has yet to fully explain. Some researchers have proposed that consciousness is not in the brain, but rather received by the brain, like a radio picking up a signal. If this is true, then our consciousness may not be bound to our physical form at all. It could extend beyond space and time, influencing reality in ways we have yet to comprehend. Could this explain intuition, déjà vu, or even the strange sense of interconnectedness that many people experience? But perhaps the most unsettling question of all is this: if you are the observer of your own reality, then who is observing you? Could there be a higher level of awareness, one that watches over all things, including your thoughts and experiences? And if so, does that mean we are both the observed and the observer at the same time? As you drift into sleep tonight, consider this. What if your consciousness is not inside you, but all around you? What if you are not merely experiencing reality, but actively creating it? And if so, what does that mean for your place in the universe? What do you think? Is consciousness a product of the brain, or is it something deeper, something fundamental to reality itself? The brain as a filter. Do we see the world as it is? Imagine you're looking at a beautiful sunset, the sky ablaze with colors, the clouds stretching across the horizon. But here's the question. Is the sunset really as it seems? Or is what you're seeing just a product of your brain filtering reality? The world we experience every day feels tangible, concrete, and true. We assume that what we see, hear, and feel is the real world, existing independent of our perception. But what if our brains are not merely passive observers of the world, but active participants, filtering and interpreting everything we experience? What if the reality we think we perceive is not the reality as it truly is, but a version of it shaped by our brain's filters? Our brains are constantly processing an overwhelming amount of information. Every second, we're bombarded with sensory data, light, sound, texture, and smell, from all around us. Yet, despite the vastness of this information, we experience the world as a coherent, unified whole. How is this possible? The answer lies in the brain's ability to filter and interpret sensory information. In essence, your brain doesn't show you everything that's out there. Instead, it presents you with a version of reality that's adapted for your survival and understanding. Take sight, for example. What you see is not a direct representation of the outside world. The light that enters your eyes is not reality. It's simply a collection of wavelengths that your brain turns into color. The colors you perceive, the shapes you recognize, and the depth of the objects around you are all constructed by your brain based on how it interprets the incoming visual data. In fact, different creatures see the world in vastly different ways. Bees can perceive ultraviolet light, and some birds can see a much wider spectrum of colors than humans can. If their brains were processing the world like ours, they would experience a completely different reality. This filtering process isn't limited to the senses. It extends to how we perceive emotions, memories, and even our own identity. Our brains interpret and filter our emotional experiences based on past knowledge, cultural influences, and personal biases. For example, two people may witness the same event, but experience it very differently based on their unique perspectives and emotional filters. It's not that one person's experience is right and the other's is wrong. It's just that our perception of reality is shaped by our individual filters. In fact, some philosophers and neuroscientists argue that we never truly experience reality in its purest form. We are, in a sense, always experiencing a constructed version of reality, one that's been filtered through our sensory organs and processed by our brains. And what we think of as reality might just be the brain's best guess, an approximation of what's out there based on incomplete information. This idea is often referred to as the brain in a vat thought experiment, which suggests that we might be experiencing an entirely simulated version of reality, with our brains disconnected from the world around us. So the big question is, do we see the world as it truly is? The simple answer is no. Our brains are constantly working behind the scenes to filter, interpret, and even distort reality. What we experience as the world around us is a version of it, shaped by our senses, our brain's filters, and the information it decides is important. In many ways, Reality is a construct, not a static thing waiting for us to observe it, but a dynamic, ever-changing experience shaped by our minds. But here's the fascinating part. Even though we may never see the world as it truly is, that doesn't mean our perception isn't valuable. In fact, it's incredibly powerful. The brain's filters allow us to navigate the world, make sense of complex situations, and survive in a constantly changing environment. But it also leaves us with questions about the nature of perception. If we can never see the world as it is, how much of what we think we know is actually an illusion? And what does that mean for our understanding of the universe? What do you think? Are you starting to wonder if what you see is really what's out there, or if your brain is creating a world for you to experience based on its own filters and interpretations? Do you think we could ever fully perceive reality without these filters, or is that even possible? If this exploration into the nature of perception sparked your curiosity, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. We've only just begun to scratch the surface of these fascinating mysteries. Schrödinger's cat. Are multiple realities overlapping? Imagine you're in a dark room, and in the corner of the room, there's a box. Inside that box, there's a cat. But here's the twist. The cat is both alive and dead at the same time. You can't know which one is true until you open the box and observe it. But what if, just by your awareness, you're creating the reality? Could there be more than one version of reality, all existing at once? Schrödinger's cat is one of the most famous thought experiments in quantum physics. And it's not just a riddle about a cat in a box. It challenges the very way we understand reality itself. At its core, Schrödinger's cat presents a paradox. According to quantum mechanics, particles don't have fixed states until they're observed. Instead, they exist in a superposition, a mix of all possible outcomes. So, in the case of the cat in the box, it's not just alive or dead. It's both, existing in multiple states simultaneously until we look. But does this strange phenomenon apply to our world too? In the quantum world, particles like electrons and photons don't travel in a straight line from point A to point B. Instead, they take every possible path at once, existing in multiple states until we observe them. This concept is called superposition. It's as if the universe exists in a kind of overlap, where many possibilities are happening simultaneously. But only when we observe them do we collapse them into a single reality. This idea breaks down the traditional notion of a single, fixed reality that we experience. But what about the macroscopic world? Can we apply these quantum principles to our everyday lives, where we see things in clear-cut states, and the concept of a cat being both alive and dead seems absurd? Some interpretations of quantum mechanics, like the many worlds theory, suggest that every time a quantum event occurs, all possible outcomes happen, each in its own distinct universe. In this view, the cat isn't just alive or dead. It's in both states, but in two separate realities that split off from each other. In essence, there's an infinite number of parallel realities, all unfolding at the same time. Our awareness of one outcome is just a glimpse into one version of reality. What if our lives are also like this? Could there be countless versions of ourselves existing in parallel universes, each making different choices, experiencing different realities? Perhaps every decision we make branches into another reality where a different choice was made. Imagine walking down the street and having two versions of yourself, one turning left, the other turning right. In another universe, your other self could be experiencing a completely different path, a reality that seems just as real as the one you're living right now. The idea that we're all simultaneously existing in multiple overlapping realities is both mind-bending and deeply fascinating. This brings us to an even bigger question. What does it mean for us if all these realities are happening at once? Could we ever become aware of these other versions of ourselves? Some quantum physicists suggest that the boundary between realities is not as rigid as we think. In a sense, all these different outcomes are part of a vast multiverse, a sea of possibilities where every possibility is realized. But are we capable of perceiving these other realities? Could there be a way to shift between these realities, or even tap into the experiences of our parallel selves? In a practical sense, we may never directly experience the overlap of these realities. After all, we don't typically find ourselves encountering our alternate versions, even if they might exist. But the possibility that multiple realities are constantly unfolding alongside ours raises a deeper question about the nature of consciousness and the universe itself. What if our perception of reality is only a tiny fragment of something much larger, a vast landscape of possibilities we can't yet comprehend? Could we be part of an intricate tapestry of multiple, overlapping realities, all connected in ways we cannot yet see? So, as you lie there, closing your eyes and drifting into sleep, take a moment to think about the vastness of existence. Could there be countless versions of you, living out different stories, choosing different paths, and experiencing realities that are just as real as the one you're in? And if that's the case, what does it mean for the choices you make today? Could your awareness of this reality, your consciousness, be the key that opens the door to countless other versions of existence? The simulation hypothesis. Are we creating the world as we go? What if everything around you, the room you're in, the sounds you hear, the people you interact with, are just pieces of a grand simulation? What if the reality you experience is not real at all, but a world created by an advanced intelligence, one that you're only temporarily plugged into? Can you imagine that your existence, your thoughts, your decisions are part of a program? Could we be the creators of this world and not even realize it? The simulation hypothesis has fascinated philosophers, scientists, and thinkers for decades. It asks a fundamental question. Could our entire universe, everything we experience, be an artificial creation? Is everything around us a simulation, a digital construct, rather than physical reality? This idea has gained serious attention in modern philosophy and physics. If advanced civilizations can build incredibly realistic simulations, why couldn't we be living in one? If future civilizations can simulate entire worlds, then it's likely that we are living in one of those simulations. In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom proposed the simulation argument, which suggests that one of the following must be true. Human civilization will go extinct before developing the ability to create simulations. Advanced civilizations will choose not to run simulations of their ancestors, or we are almost certainly living in a simulation. The argument hinges on the fact that if it becomes possible to create simulations indistinguishable from reality, it's highly probable that we are part of one. But if we are living in a simulation, what does this mean for us? Are our thoughts, emotions, and decisions predetermined by the code running this simulation? Or could we be shaping the world as we go, creating our own reality in the process? If we are living in a simulation, it raises questions about free will and consciousness. Could we be actively creating the world around us with every thought, action, and decision? Some theorists suggest that subtle glitches in the simulation, strange coincidences, moments that feel out of sync, might be signs of the code revealing itself. Have you ever experienced déjà vu or felt like time slowed down for a moment? These moments could be clues that the simulation isn't flawless. And if we're in a simulation, What happens when we wake up? Could we ever realize we've left it? What if the line between the simulated world and the real world blurs so much that we can never differentiate them? If that's the case, what does it mean for our reality? Could we be in control of our world, shaping it with our choices, unaware of the true nature of our existence? As you close your eyes tonight, consider this. What if everything around you is part of a simulation? Could your reality be a digital construct, one that you are creating with every moment? Could you be part of a program so convincing that you don't even realize it? If so, what would that mean for the choices you make tomorrow? What do you think? Do you believe we could be living in a simulation? Are you creating your own reality, or is it all a grand design? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If observation shapes reality, can we change our future? Imagine you're standing at a crossroads in your life. The choices you make, the paths you take, seem to shape the future that lies ahead. But what if I told you that the very act of observing those choices might be altering the course of your life, the future you're heading toward? What if your perception of reality isn't just passive, but active? Could your thoughts and awareness be shaping the world around you, and even the future you're about to live? This idea brings us to one of the most intriguing concepts in modern physics, the notion that observation doesn't just reveal reality, but actually shapes it. It's a theory that has its roots in quantum mechanics, where the very act of observing a particle can influence its behavior. In quantum physics, the famous Double-Slit Experiment demonstrated that light and matter exist as both particles and waves. When we observe them, they behave as particles, but when we don't, they behave as waves, existing in a superposition of possibilities. It's almost as though the act of observation collapses the wave function, determining the outcome of events. But what if this concept extends beyond the realm of quantum physics and into our daily lives? Could the way we observe the world, the way we perceive events and circumstances, actually shape the reality we experience? Could our future, all the moments that haven't happened yet, be influenced by our present awareness? If observation plays such a pivotal role in shaping the present moment, could it also impact the trajectory of our lives, the paths we choose, and the experiences we attract? The idea that our observation shapes reality isn't just confined to scientific theory. It has profound implications in philosophy and personal development. Think about it. How often do we define our reality based on how we perceive it? If we view a situation with a negative mindset, believing that things won't work out, does that belief influence the outcome? And if we observe the world with a mindset of possibility, openness, and positivity, does that shift the trajectory of our future experiences? Are we not only witnessing the world around us, but also playing a part in creating it? In a more metaphysical sense, this concept brings us to the idea of manifestation. Many believe that by focusing our thoughts and intentions on a specific outcome, we can influence the future. Is this simply a placebo effect, a trick of the mind, or is there more to it? Could our observation of a potential future alter the probabilities of it becoming real? Some suggest that the universe responds to our consciousness, that by observing and focusing on a particular future, we begin to attract the experiences and opportunities that align with that future. If we're continuously thinking about what we desire and visualizing it as a real possibility, are we, in a sense, changing the fabric of reality to match those desires? Let's take a step back and think about the implications of this on a larger scale. What if the future is not predetermined, but instead constantly shifting and changing, depending on the decisions we make today? If our observation shapes reality, then every thought, every choice, every action we take is contributing to the unfolding of our future. In a way, the future isn't something fixed. It's something malleable, always in motion, always being shaped by the present moment. And in this process, you are an active participant, not just a passive observer. So, if observation truly shapes reality, can we change our future by the way we perceive it? Can we start to create the future we want by simply shifting our mindset, becoming more conscious of our thoughts, and observing our lives in a new way? If the future is shaped by our awareness, then perhaps the most powerful tool we have at our disposal is our ability to consciously choose how we observe our own lives, how we choose to interpret the events that unfold, how we decide to react to the world around us. It's as if we're holding a brush, and the canvas of our future is waiting to be painted with every thought, every action, every moment of awareness. What do you think? Do you believe that the way you observe reality can shape your future? Could your awareness today be determining what happens tomorrow?